Hey everyone, it's Mari. Thanks so much for stopping by my channel today. I have a card making process for you, and I'm going to be using the Penny Black Dressed in Snow stamp to create the most part of my card front today. I'm going to stamp this stamp down onto some Ranger watercolor paper using my Misty, and I've just got some archival ink here in Library Green that I'm using to stamp out these evergreen trees. And I am going to just do a few different stamps of those to make sure that the impression is good and dark on this watercolor paper. Sometimes you have to do that with watercolor paper just because of the texture on it. And you'll just see me doing some repeated stamping here with that ink. And I just really love using these ink cubes from Ranger because they're really super easy to get into small areas on your stamp. So you can just kind of use the edge or the corners of the stamp to tap in some color into some of those different areas. And in areas like that little evergreen tree that's on the bottom of where I'm stamping there, that's kind of above the main tree on the bottom, it's a matter of just kind of getting in there with the corner of that stamp and getting that other little evergreen stamped out. Now I'm also going to take some of the archival ink in potting soil, and I don't have the small cube of potting soil. I've just got the full-size stamp for that one, but I am going to use that as the ink for the larger other kind of tree there that's not an evergreen tree, just to stamp out all of the different branches of that tree. I'm just going to take my chamois and wipe off some of the ink where I don't want to stamp that brown. And I'm going to stamp that down. Now you'll notice that on the bottom of this stamp, I'm not sure how well you can see it, but on the very bottom of the actual Penny Black stamp, when it's sitting in its how it's supposed to, like in its landscape mode, there is a little bit of a fence at the bottom, but I am going to use a frame on this, and so that little bit of fence at the bottom is not going to show. So I'm not too worried about stamping that out in the right color or what's going to happen with that, because it's going to end up getting covered up. So I'm just going to take my little embossing powder tool here and put some embossing powder on the entire card, because I am going to do some Versamark inking over top of this entire image. So I'm going to take my Versamark ink, I'm going to stamp this back onto my image, and I'm going to do some clear embossing over top of all of these images. So I'm going to get that on there well, just by stamping it a couple of times using my Misty. It's the beautiful thing about the Misty, you can get the ink right back in the exact same spot where you want it. And I'm going to use some Ranger clear embossing powder here. And I'm going to just put that onto my coffee filter. I'm going to use my little Nouveau spoon to apply that Ranger clear embossing powder, and going to get that clear embossing powder all over those images of those trees. And then I'm going to heat that up and melt that. And I'm going to be using some distress ink over top of this. And I wanted to just set the colors of the trees with this clear embossing powder so that I can just go in with my distress inks over top. So I'm going to just take my little tweezers and I think they're EK Success tweezers. I'm going to go ahead and melt all of that embossing powder on there. And you can see that it's just going to be clear, which is perfect for what I wanted to do here. And then I am going to, like I said, go over with some distress inks to create my sky in the background of my card, my little scene that I'm creating here. And I absolutely love these Penny Black stamps. They're so pretty. And I just think that this creates a really cool scene for this card. And this card's going to end up being a thank you card, but it could be any type of card. Actually, it depends on whatever sentiment it is that you want to put on it. So I'm going to use a couple of distress inks here. I'm going to start out with dried marigold, and I'm going to use this for the sky at the very bottom. You know how some parts of the day the sky just at the horizon line can almost have a little bit of a glow of yellow or orange, and so I'm just going to create that here a little bit with this dried marigold. You'll just see me cutting that paper out kind of in a a semicircle shape so that I don't end up getting a straight line completely. I'm just using that white paper there, that white cardstock, just to allow for a little bit more of a smooth transition from the marigold color to the blue color that I'm going to be putting above it, and to allow me just to do a little bit easier blend here with that white cardstock to kind of blend off. And I'm just using my Ranger blending tool here for this process with my distress inks. Now I'm just going to take that little piece that I cut off when I created that little area when I was doing the yellow parts, and I'm going to put that down just to protect the bottom part of the yellow and so that I can hold on to my card. And I'm going to go in with some Stormy Sky distress ink here, and I really love this color. It's very typical of what a winter sky would look like, and trust me, I know because I live in Canada and I see that sky for a good 6 months of the year. And so yeah, just gonna get this all blended in just like I did for the yellow. I'm going to end up taping that white cardstock down at the top there just so that it stays in place. It was just kind of annoying me, so I'm going to take the time to put a little bit of micropore tape down to stick that down to my mat. And I'm going to continue to struggle with that, and I will put another little bit of tape on the other end there, and just trying to protect my surface a little bit, but also giving me an area where I can blend off of using my blending tool. Now I'm going to go back in with that marigold color again, and I'm going to kind of blend over top of the yellow and the blue together, just to blend them together a little bit. And I like how that looks when it's all finished. It just kind of creates a little bit of a yellowy glow in the blue. And I like how there's that darker area with that blue as well, kind of above the yellow, because it almost looks like the impression of like a mountain or something in the background. I just like how that looks. I feel like it looks really, almost gives it sort of like a 3D look or some depth. Now I'm going to take a little bit of water, and I'm going to splatter this card front with some water just to create some water droplets and create that reaction with that distress ink, since that distress ink does react with water. And now I'm going to take my Nuvo drops in glossy white, and I'm going to just add that to the areas where there's the impression of the snow on those evergreen trees and over on the branches of the tree that's brown. Now I'm going to take a little bit of Copic white paint, and I've watered that down on my acrylic block. I'm just going to take an old brush, and I'm going to just flick some white bits of snow onto my card front as well. And now I'm going to take a sentiment from the Penny Black Full of Merriment sentiment stamp set, and I'm going to stamp out with my VersaFine Onyx Black ink, Snow Many Thanks. And I really love the way that this looks. I like how this turned out. It's just a really wintry scene, but it's a thank you card. This could be a Christmas card. It could have been a birthday card, a sympathy card. I mean, whatever you want this sentiment to be. This is a pretty generic card front that could serve the purpose of a lot of different cards that you might want to send out or give out to your loved ones. So I am just going to make sure that that stamped image for the sentiment is really nice and solid. And I like how this turns out using my Misty. I just really love my Misty for stamping sentiments on my card fronts. It's just a way to ensure that you have a really good solid sentiment stamped on that area where you want your sentiment. So I'm just going to remove that now from the Misty, and I am going to finish the card off here using some sequins. I'm going to use some sparkling clear sequins in a couple of different sizes, and then I will put a little bit of those same crystal glossy white Nuvo drops in the center of my sequins just to finish them off. And I am going to use the antique frame from Penny Black as well. And I'm going to finish my card off with that frame. So you'll just see me bring that frame over. I've just used my Big Shot to cut that out of just some white cardstock. I'm not going to put any or do any antiquing of that frame. I just wanted to keep it really crisp and white because I felt that it almost kind of looks like a snowy background or frame around the card, which I thought really went nicely with the theme. So I'm going to just put my sequins on here using a little bit of or some little glue dots, and then like I said, you will just see me using the Nouveau drops in white in the centers of those sequins, just to kind of look almost like a little bit of snow in those cupped sequins, just to finish them off. So that's my card, guys. Thank you so very much for stopping by today. I really appreciate it. I will leave a link to my blog in the description box below so that you can head over to my blog and see a little bit more about the supplies that I used for my card today. Thank you so much for stopping by and for watching my card making process today. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you again. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.